So I was watching a podcast with two male models, Chico Lachowski and Sean O'Prey. Something I noticed is that Sean O'Prey seems to have aged a lot better than Chico. Why is this? Why do some men seem to age a lot better? They seem to peak way later in life compared to guys that sometimes peak in their 20s. This is something that's kind of like debated a lot in Looksmaxxing. There are people that say, oh, wait until you get to your 30s, that's when you're going to peak as a guy in terms of looks. And some men say even as early 20s. And I think both of these are true actually. Some men really do peak earlier than others, and some men age basically like wine. Like Sean O'Prey looks phenomenal even though he's 35, and I don't think there's any sign of him looking bad with age, like he's probably going to be mugging us in his 40s. But you know, this begs the question, what is it that makes some men seem to age a lot more gracefully? Now in the case of these two guys, these are both male models at the top of their game, so I know a lot of people are going to think, oh, it's to do with lifestyle, he's not getting enough sleep, not drinking enough water, not eating right, all that kind of stuff. I don't think that's going to be the factor for these two guys. I think both of them are going to look after themselves. It's kind of demanded for their job, right? So I think that's kind of like a non-factor. I think genetics has a bigger part to play than people realize in terms of, or at least the visual signs of aging. Now, I'm sure there's like a genetic component to how thick your skin is, how much collagen is in there, you know, the big factors to making you look younger. But I also think the way your skull is shaped also changes how young you may look or how gracefully you will age. Something I noticed with a lot of guys that are in like the pretty boy niche and not like the Chad or hypermasculine niche is that they kind of fall off a bit earlier in terms of their peak. I think it's kind of like the pretty boy curse. A lot of them don't have like the most like robust masculine dimorphic features. Like they don't have that super wide jaw, very high cheekbones and forwardly grown face that some men have. But what they do have is like good eyes and eyebrows and good skin and other features like that. But the problem is they're really relying on skin collagen, and skin collagen decreases as we age just naturally. Thus, the skin tightness that they have is kind of determined just by being young, and that's about it. So a lot of the time when you see like these pretty boy guys that have like that look, it kind of by definition doesn't last that long. Guys that have like the Chad look or the hypermasculine look seem to age a lot more gracefully. And I think a big reason for that is the skull shape is wide enough that it kind of stretches your skin out just by itself. Sean O'Prey, for example, has a very wide jaw. He has very forwardly grown features. Like he is like the prototypical Chad, right? Like he's like a legit 10 out of 10. And because his skull has like this very masculine shape to it, it's very wide, there's a lot of angles to it just naturally, it stretches out his skin and it kind of gives him the look of being young, even if he has decreased collagen from being in his mid-30s. So, you know, you see a lot of people in Looksmaxxing debating, you know, which is better? Is it better to be like a pretty boy or like the Chad archetype? I think the Chad archetype like Sean O'Prey is preferable. Like, no offense to Chico Lachowski, like he still looks good, but I'd rather look like Sean O'Prey. Like the collagen that you have in your skin from being young is kind of short-lived. Like you can obviously extend this by being healthy and doing lifestyle changes and so on and so forth, but you know, nature is going to take its course and you know, things will fall apart over time eventually. But if you have strong masculine bones underneath it, you can lose skin collagen and still look phenomenal. Like your skull shape stays the same pretty much. There are some minor changes as you age, like your eye sockets get bigger and so on, but for the most part, if you have a dimorphic skull shape, I think you're going to age a lot more gracefully because you're not quite as reliant on just having youthful skin and that's it. The pretty boy archetype like Chico Lachowski, he looks phenomenal, but if you have a wide, forwardly grown skull like Sean O'Prey, you kind of have like a natural facelift all the time, just because of how much the skin is being stretched. It's really kind of a blessing as you age, I would imagine. But if you don't have strong bones like that underneath, you know, you're not going to fare as good in your 30s. And I don't think this is something that is discussed too often, but what about changing your skull shape? I made a video on a big mistake that you can make when trying to Looksmax that you can check out on screen here.